Our presentation is titled, Making Every Child's World Better.
Here's an overview of what you will be seeing in the next few minutes.
Our quality of life topic was education. Education is the act or process of imparting or acquiring general knowledge, developing the powers of reasoning and judgment, and generally of preparing oneself or others intellectually for mature life. We chose this topic because 2 of our group members are interested in becoming teachers, so learning more about different experiences of students with intellectual disabilities in classroom settings, as well as the different options available for students, was of great interest. We believe this topic is important because all children will attend school and be educated in some way, so we think it's really important to learn how to best teach all different students, including those with intellectual disabilities. An intellectual disability is characterized by significant limitations in both intellectual functioning and adaptive behavior, which covers many everyday social and practical skills, and it must originate before the age of 18. Here are some additional considerations to keep in mind. Intellectual functioning is the general mental capacity of an individual, including learning, reasoning, and problem solving. Adaptive behavior is a collection of skills learned and performed in everyday life, and this includes conceptual, social, and practical skills. As you can see here, there are many different types of intellectual disabilities, and the severity varies greatly between each individual.
The Individual with Disabilities Education Act is a federal law that requires schools to serve the educational needs of eligible students with disabilities. Schools must evaluate students suspected of having disabilities, including learning disabilities, to decide the right course of action for that student. This covers students from infancy throughout high school graduation or the age of 21, whichever comes first. About 5.8 million school-aged children in the U.S. receive special education. 40% of these students are identified with an intellectual disability. To be qualified, they must have a disability and need special education in order to make progress at school. This act covers 13 different disabilities, which you can see here. There are 2 types of settings, inclusive and segregated. An inclusive classroom is one with children both with and without intellectual disabilities. IDEA mandates free and appropriate public education, but challenges do exist. For example, special education programs are underfunded, and there is a shortage of teachers trained and prepared to deal with intellectual disabilities. Also, all students with disabilities must be assessed along with peers that do not have disabilities, which is a challenge because students with intellectual disabilities sometimes do not respond the same to traditional methods of testing. Also, the use of restraint and seclusion in schools is often unregulated and used disproportionately on children with disabilities, which frequently results in injury or trauma. Some of the benefits of inclusive education include parents' vision of a typical life for their child can come true. They are able to make friends and have peers both with and without disabilities. Also, children develop positive understandings of themselves and others. They learn to appreciate and respect diversity and learn to play and respect people with different abilities. Friendships also develop. They learn social skills, and children without disabilities understand that children with disabilities still possess strengths and can add value to a classroom environment. Also, children with and without disabilities learn the importance of academic skills, so they have a higher expectation for children with disabilities. Also, children become more understanding and knowledgeable about what intellectual disabilities are. There can also be issues with inclusive education. Some schools lack any staff specifically trained to teach children with a disability. Students with intellectual disabilities do learn differently and do require different things in order to succeed. It can be difficult for the classroom teacher to give the individual time and attention the students require and deserve. Students with intellectual disabilities may feel singled out and become down on themselves if they see other students with different homework and projects at different difficulty levels. Some students with intellectual disabilities have disruptive tendencies, causing distractions to the other students in the classroom.
The second type of setting is a segregated setting. These specialize in teaching students with learning, behavior, mental health, medical, or intellectual disabilities. They usually specialize in 1 or 2 types of disability and are rarely a one-size-fits-all for all conditions. For example, a student with dyslexia would require different types of therapy than a student with autism. Teachers and staff members have additional training in dealing with children with intellectual disabilities. Most are part of the public school system and are free of charge, but there are also private special needs schools that do charge tuition. There are many benefits of segregated schools. Highly trained staff can focus more on each student's individual needs, strengths, and weaknesses. There's a low student to teacher ratio, and there are different programs than mainstream public schools, emphasizing creativity and developing skills that would not normally be worked on in mainstream public schools. The following video is a clip from Mary McDowell Friends Middle School, which is a school specifically designed for students with learning disabilities.
I really believe that when you grow up with a learning disability, you spend a lot more time figuring out how to do it. And I believe that the skills that are needed for you to be successful in school pave the way for you to be successful as an adult.
Well, some of the struggles that happen in middle school have to do with the way the curriculum changes as you get into the middle school years. When you're younger, you're learning to read. And when you're getting older, you're reading to learn. And so reading becomes a much bigger factor in the academic process. But we don't feel it should interfere with their ability to grasp complex concepts and rich history and sophisticated science.
There are also issues with segregated schools. Most students that enter a segregated school usually don't enter a mainstream school. There's little interaction with peers without intellectual disabilities of their own age. Also, some studies have found that inclusive environments have better outcomes for both students with and without disabilities. Accessibility is also an issue. Not all districts and areas have schools designed for students with their particular intellectual disability.